Hi, I'm Emani del Castillo, and I am your moderator for this year's Black Femme Supremacy Festival 2021. Our block today is Defining Black, and the films that I will be moderating today will be selected short films that affirm trouble and elevate and clarify Black identity constructs. Today we have Being Black um, and For the Love of Monsters. Directors for both of those films are with us, and I would love to pass it over for them to introduce themselves so that you guys can get to know them. Starting with Cam. Hi, Cam.
Hey, thanks for having me. So good to be here. But yes, my name is Cam. I am the director, producer, editor, all that good stuff behind Being Black.
And we have Essay Obrimah.
Hi, my name is Eseoghene Obrimah, and I'm the co-writer, and producer for The Love of Monsters, and I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you guys here. I am an artist and a Black trans woman, and that really informs the way that I think about body and time and memory, and how that forms our identity as a collective. So, with both of your films, I'm so excited to talk more and dive deep with you all. Um, you know, I think that a lot of times when we're defining ourselves, um, we think about gender, class, and race, um, and I think I'm really thinking about the level of control that we have, that and how much of it do we really have in real time. And I'm really excited to talk about some themes in each of your projects around that kind of depiction of of what informs your Blackness, and who else is informing you, um, and your identity. So with for the Love of Monsters, and that brings me to let's begin, because when I started to watch For the Love of Monsters, I really I was I first of all, the uh the family depiction of the Nigerian household was one that I was familiar with. I personally am Dominican, but my mother very much acts like the mother depicted in the film, and I definitely identified as actually a very shy child that was quiet all the time because my mother was so loud all the time. So it was really hard for me to overshadow and overpower her. Um, Now in my adulthood, I kind of feel like I want to be more like her. Um, so I when okay, so first, what was the inspiration for you? Like, where were you when you first thought about making this film, and with your identity?
The story is born out of something a friend said to me. She kind of randomly said, I have this memory of playing in the playground at school with a friend when we were like children,
Yeah.
and this girl I was playing with told me what her uncle was doing to her, and I told her what my cousins were doing to me, and we went on playing. So I became very like, I think that's a very disturbing thing to be told, but it's also like when you think about how, I think it prompted me to think about what a culture and a society and an environment needs to be like for a conversation that heavy to be reduced to playtime banter between two children. And so I became like kind of very fascinated by the idea, like what kind of environment prompts that kind of conversation. So for the Love of Monsters became a task in painting that picture of like what are things that are happening to young children, what are things that parents are saying or doing that cause young children to kind of sweep that kind of thing under the rug or to kind of start to believe it as a normal part of their lives.
Yeah, I saw the the narrative, the underlining narrative there. It wasn't so prominent. Like, how did you decide how prominent that message was gonna be depicted in the film or not? And yeah.
I think in a case like that, I think with the resources that we had, I think we knew for a fact that we couldn't tell a story that we didn't have the tools to make a theme that prominent in a way that we would be able to protect our actors from the
Mm.
trauma of like having to depict those kinds of situations. So it was like as much as we would have been interested in telling a story where that those kind of things were like at the forefront or incredibly clear to the audience. We were like, let's kind of bury it deeper and make this a larger conversation about culture in general. That's why the monster is like a lot of people ask, is there a specific thing that it represents? It's like no, it represents culture in general, about like the toxic things that we bring from a culture that we hold on to because of this is our traditions and our beliefs, but they are actually harmful to a lot of people, but we're not willing to admit that because we believe it's part of who we are.
Yes, yes. I had recently gone to the Dominican Republic, and I got reacquainted with like um, the rhythm of the language and a lot of the underlying things that you seemingly just have to agree to because you are a part of that culture and you're seen as um, these are our customs, and so you should abide by these customs because they were here before you. And I really think that that kind of is just like a um, to me, it felt like an unsafe space to then um, like I wasn't acknowledged for who I authentically was, and or am, right? And I saw that in the film with kind of like the minimizing of like by the parents, by their roles and the culture of being Nigerian. And there is also this sense of like having to claim your culture in an outside space, like being um in another country, and and you having to claim you're having to vocalize your identity a little bit louder, to create your own personal safe space. So there's a lot of things to navigate, especially as a child. So I was really impressed with like the two the characters, like both um, child actors that got, which were amazing. They were so good, and so cute. But the monster itself, for me, did surpass the trauma around any sexual abuse, or it was about like honoring your ancestor, to me, and honoring those things that um, the ways in which your ancestors thought that weren't for you, and how do we begin to make space again for ourselves. So I'm interested to know, with you personally, like how do you see yourself creating new work, new film projects that center uh, closely your identity, in relationship to your culture now, yeah, after the making of this film.
I think after the making of this film, and I think in conjunction with the films I've made in the past, I think I was very concerned as a younger filmmaker with saying things that were super important about
Mhm.
society and my culture. And now I'm more so invested in um, telling stories that imagine what freedom looks like. And
Mm.
so, whether that is an interrogation of culture or society or religion or just like even internal troubles that are often just a manifestation of like our exterior environment and social position. I'm really concerned in like not with necessarily like dealing with the issue in and of itself, but more so imagining what a just world looks like. What is a situation where like everyone is like their freest, most on where everybody is liberated. And I think when,
Mm.
as a filmmaker who is interested in like sci-fi and fantasy and magical realism type films, like I think like if you can paint the picture of what could be, I think you give people who are interested in creating that world sort of like, oh, if that's what our goal looks like, then it kind of makes it easier for you to go, what do we need to do to get there? And I think that's where I'm trying to move towards as a filmmaker and as an artist.
I love that. I love that. The issues that I love that you mentioned the issues that are at hand currently, and that prevent us from accessing that kind of freedom, which leads me to ask Cam about being Black and your film. Um, there were first the musical aspect. It had a music video quality and a simultaneously a documentary style quality to the film that I really appreciated. Sort of like having to deal with reality and also diving into pleasure at the same time, and having it directly layered onto one another visually and audibly, which was really beautiful. And what what kind of what prompted that decision as a filmmaker for you?
It was kind of something that just fell into place. So
Oh.
at the time, there was a protest that was going on. My friend was working on this song, Being Black. She's the artist, Black Assets. And then I was also just, so while the protests were happening, I kind of just wanted to dig deeper into like the archives of footages of the world to see, like, okay, is this the same? Like, obviously, history repeats itself, but like, how verbatim to the T is it, repetitive? And so I kind of just started like naturally collecting archival footage that I would find online, all that good stuff. And I came across the Black Panthers, and it was like a 30-minute long video. And I watched it, and I was like, wow, so we're protesting the same things. And then I heard Black song. She was like, yeah, I'm working on this song. What do you think about it? And I was totally like, I was working on, putting my protest footage together with the Black Panther footage, but I was like, I'm kind of doing double work here. It's actually my partner that was like, why don't you just put them together? And I was like, huh, I guess
Yeah.
they do kind of correlate in a sense. So it kind of just worked out. And I think at the time, um, I was just trying to like document more of my family. So like my actual family members are in that as well. And yeah, it just all made sense. I was like, wow, it started as like two separate pieces, and it just made sense to put them all together. So I guess I would just say it happened naturally.
Yeah, I was happy to see some familiar places faces, because I had lived in Baltimore too, and I was just like,
Oh, lit.
oh, I was like, oh, that's Josh. Um,
Oh, hey, that's nice. That's what's
so
up. That's what's
it
up.
was really cool. It was really cool to see those faces, and that you kind of like see in passing sometimes, and then you form relationships with them. Sometimes you don't, and but you identify with them either way, and they're fam.
Thanks.
And
Yeah, we're all collected.
yeah, I love that. I love that feeling of Blackness. I love that aspect of Blackness culturally, that our bodies kind of like indefinitely hold everywhere we go. Um, and I think that the lyrics and the music that was paired with the 10 points program, that it was definitely, I mean, like I was like, okay, cool, like this is this is really talking about everything that we've been asking for a really long time, our pleasure to be at the forefront, and our freedom to be at the forefront, um, to allow ourselves to have that. And I wanted to ask about, why did you choose 10 points program as, um, and what was the decision behind not going further into more footage around history, versus, yeah, having more music or depictions of pleasure?
I think that's a really good question that I kind of like been asking myself because I'm like, do I want to make an extended version? So I chose the 10 points. So I also had, along with that, I had some footage from March on Washington and like a couple of Martin Luther King speeches that I also acquired. So I was trying to like, I wanted to make my point, make it within the limits of the song, but also make it like the most powerful pieces. So I think the very first version that I created was maybe like 5 minutes, and then like literally as I was working along, she had sent me her song like in the process. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. I can kind of like this gives me a parameter to work in between. Like it worked. It was working out for me. So all that to say, I just chose to go with the 10 points because I felt like that was the most powerful. And I wanted Black, like I wanted her music to still be heard, but I wanted the points to also still be seen. So I was trying to find that balance, and I was like, if I'm going to use these speeches from MLK, then they need to like be heard, they need to be seen, it needs to just be that. And so I felt like maybe adding that would have taken away to it, but I don't know. Maybe I should make an extended version and just,
I
I
loved
don't
it.
know.
I loved it, because it felt, if the contrast was so, there was it was a stark contrast between the pleasure I was feeling, um, from the music, and then also like, because that's exactly how we as Black people feel, like we love ourselves, right? But then the world is kind of telling us that a different story, and in like real time, and we kind of just hold those very stark contrast, energies and within ourselves as we, go about space and time. And so I was like, I was just, I thought it was amazing. It, you can, it was just perfect. I was just like, okay, um, it doesn't. At first, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is different, like, but that speaks to what exactly how I feel. Like that's my mind. Like we sometimes get lost in music, right, and ritual, um, and finding points of pleasure, um, because we have to remind ourselves of what freedom feels like, and then
Mhm.
and create language to know what we need and ask for. So the 10 points program was such a great like summary of, and like there's no way that you could have condensed it any further, like, but it encompass without losing, who we are. For I guess I have a question for, both of you, because defining Black, this segment, along with the film festival, we're concerned with climate change, and our environment, and how that speaks to our, the constructs of our identity. Where where do you see, how do you see yourself growing, or accessing freedom in, yeah, in the future, after this whole thing happen, pandemic, and all this stuff happens, like, and you really get to access, this this space of complete creative control. Um, what are some projects, I guess, that you guys are excited to delve into?
I can go. Yeah, I do have like a slate of projects that deal with a bunch of themes, like that have to do with like generational trauma and the trauma inflicted by the church on people. I was like, God damn. On people. I'm shooting a short tomorrow about it's about a black woman who recently died and is working their first gig for a corporation that has dead people perform ghostly acts in order to pay off their debt. So it kind of plays with this idea of like what happens if your debt doesn't go away when you die. You're kind of like having to pay it
Right.
off as a dead person. So it's a really fun concept written and directed by a great filmmaker named Aquarius Esther that I'm producing with them. So very excited for that. I'm writing things that are based in Nigeria. I'm working on things that are set in Chicago. So I think like freedom for me is like getting to be an international filmmaker that is not bound by these borders and visas and all whatnot. And being able to tell stories that are set all over the world that really have to do with relationships between people who are from all over the world, because as an international student in the United States, that's been my experience and that's been my community, people who are from multiple cultures and different experiences, and what our lives look like when all of those collide. So I'm really trying to do a lot more of that.
Love that. Love that. We support it. We love to see it. What
Yeah,
about you?
literally. That's so dope. That's so dope. Oh my god. Genius. For me, so I have like a few projects that I've been diving into, but the one that's been kind of like really on my heart is like with real estate. So I recently started working with a nonprofit and just kind of telling the stories about the process and all that good stuff that comes with it. And I'll never forget the owner of the nonprofit. She goes by Bree, or her name is Bree Jones. We were having a conversation, and like there's this Future song, and he says, "I heard the police looking for me because I got the hood hot." And so we were having a conversation about like, why is the hood hot? Well, the hood is hot because there's no trees there. Like there's not enough, um, like the landscaping that's in a hood compared to like a well furbished neighborhood is totally different. So the hood is hot literally because it's not like given the things that it needs. It's not nourished well. So I feel like in learning more about real estate and how like just underfunded these communities are set up to be. It's really interesting to learn like the ins and outs of it, even from like a filmmaking standpoint. Like I'm seeing it, I'm seeing how it all comes together, and how people will really, if they believe in the vision, they'll really just rock with you. So I think it's really powerful learning about real estate and just developing, because ultimately that can be a generational wealth builder, and that's something that I'm trying to get to. Like I'm the black sheep in my family. I'm trying to break these curses. Like no more of not having legacy, no more of not being able to tap into wealth. None of that. Forget all of that. So I would say definitely real estate is becoming a form of freedom for me as a filmmaker and personally. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. The I love what you said. If you believe in your vision, then everyone will like, you know, fuck with you. So it's just that's really why we're here. And that's why we're here at Black Film Supremacy Film Festival. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I really thank you for doing the work that you all do and dedicated to your visions. I rock with you, and I'm so appreciative of this time that we spent together. Please, as you know, everyone who's watching, stay up to date with us and the Black Femme Supremacy Film Festival.com. Go on there and purchase your tickets. Look at our other blogs that we have and other amazing filmmakers. We'll have more panel discussions for you. Yeah, and talk to you next year. Bye.